Well, good morning again. It is 11 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Erin Larson. I'm the Apprenticeship Director at the Department of Labor and Industry, and I'm joined by my colleagues Georgiana Amundsen and Jeremy Parker, who are on the call as well. And they are great resources who, if you have any questions about the Clean Economy Grant, they'll be able to help you as well. So the purpose of today's call is really to talk about the RFP that we have out for the Registered Apprenticeships of Tomorrow Clean Economy Grant. I'm going to start by just kind of walking through where you can find some resources about the grant itself. Then I'll walk through the RFP. We'll take a look at the application. And then if you have any questions, we'll certainly address those too. So you're welcome to drop questions in the chat. Please also note that this session is being recorded and we will post it to the Department of Labor and Industry's webpage on that same grant page. So let's get started. I will share my screen. I wanted to start by just calling out that on DLI's website, we have a webpage dedicated to this particular grant. I think Georgiana is going to drop the link into the chat, so if you want to follow along, you can. But this is where all of the information for the grant is located. You can find the RFP, you can download the application. Georgiana updates the frequently asked questions every week on Friday, just to, in case as questions have come in, you can find out if there are any new ones that are listed there as well. So just to kind of quickly kick us off, I won't go through the whole web page, but I just want to point out some key features. So for this particular grant, and I'll talk about this again, but we have $80,000 in total available for the grant, and we expect roughly to award 4 grants depending on the size of the requests that come in. The grant was released on the 23rd. Here we are, the 31st with our webinar. The last day to submit questions is this Friday on November 3rd by the end of the day. And then the grant application is due on November 10th. We plan to announce the award winners in mid-December, and then you'll have from January to June to spend your funds. And I'll talk a little bit why there's such a tight turnaround as well. But just to kind of highlight that timeline, down below, and these other items are within the RFP too, so I'll talk about them there. But then at the bottom, you can see that there's the request for proposal, there's the application, and the FAQ. If you're curious about some definitions, you'll also find those are there as well. And then Georgiana's contact information is available if you need to reach out to her with any specific questions about this particular grant. So let's jump over and take a look at the RFP itself. Georgiana, can you confirm that you can see the Word document on your screen? Great, thank you.
Yes.
All right, so these are probably pretty familiar looking to you if you've applied for a Department of Labor grant before, but as I mentioned, we have $80,000 in total available right now. This is through we have a 1-year federal grant that this money is flowing through. We have a separate pot of state funding that eventually will be larger and have a bigger pot and longer timeline, but this is specifically tied to our federal grant, so that's why you're seeing a shorter timeline of why we have to expend it in a smaller amount of dollars. So keep that in the back of your mind that there likely will be future opportunities as well related to the transition to the clean economy. So the purpose for this particular set of funding is to support current electrical registered apprenticeship programs or other programs that help to increase the capacity to train apprentices in clean economy fields. As we mentioned, that period of performance is January 1st, 2024 to June 30th, and applications are due at the end of the day on November 10th. You can submit those by email to Georgiana, or if you, for some reason, want to submit a paper copy, please contact her and she can provide the details around that. But otherwise, our preference is to receive them by email. As you know, we have an informational webinar today, but if you have other additional questions, you're certainly welcome to reach out to Georgiana and she can assist you with those. As I mentioned, she's posting an FAQ with the running questions, so she can help you with those. Or if you have very nitty-gritty specifics about how to complete the application, she'll be able to assist you with those as well. We plan to announce the awards in mid-December before the holidays. We'll get those rolled out. And then, as you saw on that website, all of those application materials are available at that link, which is in the chat, and you'll also see on the screen or within the RFP. So the purpose of this grant is really to help facilitate that transition to the clean economy. As I mentioned, this is funded through our federal grant, so thus the shorter time frame. It also has a set of focus populations. If your grant project is able to support, and you'll notice it here, that it lists people of color, Indigenous people, women, and individuals with disability who are traditionally underrepresented in apprenticeship programs. So if there's a way to connect your project to help increase those underrepresented populations to participate, that's excellent. Participants include both prospective and current registered apprenticeships that are enrolled into an existing registered apprenticeship program and incumbent workers receiving additional training from a registered apprenticeship program in clean economy practices. And within the FAQ, it details a little bit more what that incumbent worker is, but it really needs to be receiving the training from the apprenticeship program, not separate from it. All right, grant outcomes, really expanding either existing electrical registered apprenticeship programs to support the transition to a clean economy, providing programs and services to introduce people of color, Indigenous people, women, or individuals with disabilities to registered apprenticeship programs that support the transition to a clean economy, helping current registered apprentices receive training around the clean economy, retaining apprentices as they receive that clean economy training, and upskilling existing apprentices and incumbent workers, as you might guess, in the clean economy. So that is the focus. So you'll note that in terms of grant activities, things like purchasing supplies, tools, and materials to develop or upgrade training labs, funding for train the trainer programming related to semiconductor manufacturing operations, equipment, maintenance or repair, or EV charging station installation repair. That could include the travel to the training sites or the curriculum and testing fees, partnering with organizations to provide RTI or related technical instruction and on-the-job training, or covering the cost for the required electrical vehicle infrastructure training exam for current apprentices. So this is not an exhaustive list. These are just some examples of things we might see. You may have other ideas that are similar to that or are in the same spirit of that transition to the clean economy. So don't let this limit you. In terms of eligible applicants, it's for existing registered apprenticeship programs, either electrical programs or others wanting to increase their capacity within that transition to the clean economy. If you're partnering with an educational institution, we would ask that they provide a letter of commitment and the pre-approved training curriculum for each of the partners must be submitted in your application packet. Please note there is an FAQ about this. If you already have an approved program that's had that curriculum approved, it details that letter isn't necessarily necessary, and I can share those details as we get into the FAQ as well. So just a couple of minimum eligibility requirements in order to apply. Again, you must be an existing electrical and/or other registered apprenticeship program in good standing, and you meet the application deadline. So in terms of total funding available, there's $80,000 available. Again, we anticipate roughly 4 grants, but depending on the types of requests we receive, that may vary. So some examples of allowable expenses and budget categories. And I would just call out, we ask that you don't add budget categories. These are the types of budget categories we would expect to see. So you can use grant funding for grant-funded personnel, grant-funded personnel travel, tools, supplies, materials, and training expenses, participant support services. So that would be like those exam fees, contract services, or and then you can also total up these categories. 5% of that can be used for administrative costs as well. There's some additional information about ineligible expenses. So Funding cannot be used to directly, for example, pay apprentices. You can't pay for fundraising or traffic violations, food, beverage, pretty much the standard things that federal funds can't be used for. In terms of reviewing the program, you can see the different priority points. My recommendation would be to, after you complete the application, come back to this chart and just kind of compare and see if you think you've kind of hit the ideas folks are looking for in the review process. But it asks for a program overview. It asks you to provide a statement on how you'll address equity within the grant project. It'll ask for an outline of program activities and services, a detailed work plan. You'll see a bulk of the points fall within the program activities and the work plan. So you'll want to detail those, calling out the outcomes of the grant, your organizational ability to support the grant, and then just a short budget narrative to explain how the funds will be used. Because it is a federal grant, there are some additional reporting requirements, but the grant is provided on a reimbursement basis. So your organization would be responsible for first purchasing the equipment or the training or whatever the project might be, and then submitting those invoices to us for reimbursement. So DLI will provide a template for that. And we anticipate those templates will be up within the next couple of weeks for the reporting pieces. We ask for an expense summary, and then if you have if you have some support services going to participants, we'd ask for the names of those apprentices, just so that we can detail the information there. But again, we'll have a template that's available for those. And then you'll notice that there's 2 reporting dates because of the quick turnaround and using the funds. So the first report would be at the end of March, and then the last one would follow the closeout date in June. The rest is kind of just boilerplate language. If your grant exceeds $50,000, we have to do an on-site monitoring visit. So it's just an extra layer of checking in. Perhaps that informs the size of grant you ask for as well, or request. But those are pretty standard boilerplate. As I mentioned, the method of payment is that it's a reimbursement. And then it talks just about the non-governmental organizations if you're applying for grants. Most of this stuff is pretty finance oriented, and I'll let you take a look at it. Or if you have specific questions, we can talk about them, but these are pretty standard. So then finally, we get to the required application materials. So an application form, a copy of your EEO policy, and if you have that partnership with an educational institution, their letter of commitment. Please don't submit any additional materials. They won't be reviewed. Those can be submitted via email to Georgiana before the end of the day on November 10th. And again, we anticipate the awards will be made in mid-December, and grant work can begin on either January 1st or when the contract is signed, whichever is later. All right, so I just want to jump over then to the application. You're going to see that it mirrors the RFP pretty similarly, but it just has some standard information to tell us about your organization. There's some recommended word counts. You don't have to write that many words. You're certainly welcome to be briefer, but those are just kind of a recommendation of the size of response we would expect to see. So there's a program overview providing a summary of your grant goals and outcomes. Couple of questions related to equity. Describe which focus populations, as described in the RFP, your organization will serve, and provide information regarding your organization's experience and ability to serve the focus populations. So program activities, you'll see there are 3 questions. Explain how your recruitment plans are specific to the focus populations and clean economy occupations. Describe the instruction and safety training you'll provide, and explain how training and support will upskill apprentices and incumbent workers in clean economy practices and technologies. And so essentially, this is the Word version of your work plan. So you would just map out the major activities by the 2 quarters that take place within the grant period. So what are the activities, what resources, what partners are involved, and what are the expected outcomes? And then you'll see that there's a short outcome chart to provide both quantitative and qualitative measures for grant activities and services. How many apprentices do you think you'll serve, or how many incumbent workers do you think you'll serve? And then just a short description of what that will look like. There's a question about organizational ability, describing your organization's prior experience with programs or services similar to those planned in the grant. The qualifications of grant personnel, your organization's administrative and fiscal capacity to manage the grant, and if there's been any change to your organization's CEO or finance officer. There's also a chart for you to detail your budget. You'll see these are the same budget categories that we mentioned within the RFP. Again, we'd like you to stick to those budget categories. Please don't add any additional lines to that. And then it asks you for a short description or a budget narrative as well to describe what those dollar amounts or line items would be about. So there's a checklist for you to follow as well to make sure that you've got everything there, but that's the application. And then the last piece, I just wanted to kind of just show you what you'll find on the, actually, I'm going to go to the, Georgiana, are these up on the website? Yep, okay. So let's just look at them there. Thank you. So you'll see that it just lists them out. These were last updated on Friday, so the 27th. Talks about the goals. Why is there such a short period of performance? Talks about how to calculate the administrative expenses, the process for getting the grant funding. Here it defines what that incumbent worker is. So it's an individual already employed with a registered apprenticeship program sponsor before program enrollment who needs to train up or upgrade their skills. So there's this question about the pre-approved training curriculum. So if you currently have a registered apprenticeship program with proprietary curriculum, you do not need to receive pre-approval. Pre-approval is required for third-party related training instruction that's not currently part of your apprenticeship training. DLA apprenticeship staff review and approve curriculum that would be incorporated into the apprenticeship program. This is a common question too of what fields are considered clean economy. So I think there's a pretty broad definition, but for this purpose, they're considered to be in the energy and energy efficiency sector. Again, with priority being given to those existing electrical apprenticeship programs. This is a question we've gotten to. So the grant program, can funding be for organizations who specialize in electrical vehicle repair? And I think the key to this one is that really it has to be an existing registered apprenticeship program in good standing. So that's probably of note. And again, this webinar will be posted. So if you want to come back to it, you sure can, or if you have someone who wants to listen who wasn't able to attend. So I'm going to pause there. I see that there are a few questions in the chat that we can talk through, and you should have the ability to unmute too if you want to just ask it. You're certainly welcome to. But if you want to either drop questions in the chat or ask them outright, please do. Dave, I'm wondering if we answered to your satisfaction that question about the clean economy definition. Okay, great. You're certainly welcome to unmute too if you don't want to type out your question. I see there are a couple of folks typing, so I'll give it a second. Oh, so we have a program approved by OA at the national level. Do we have to have a program registered with the SAA of Minnesota? That's a great question, Rebecca. we will, I, I want to make sure I give you the correct answer. So we will circle around here and get back to you directly on that one, and then it'll be posted on our FAQ too. But thank you for that question. Okay, I'm not seeing any others. So with that, I'll hang out on the line if somebody wants to talk through a more specific question, but otherwise, we hope you consider applying. And please reach out with any questions that you might have. We're excited to partner on this grant and see what projects roll out. So thanks for your time and joining us today.